Rain slammed against the penthouse windows as Ethan Kane pounded on the glass. Inside, Zara clinked champagne with two investors, her diamond flashing under chandelier light. "You can't do this," he shouted. She smiled coldly. The contract gleamed, $20 million. But whose name was on it? Ethan Kane hadn't always been desperate. 2 years earlier, he'd run a modest design firm that built eco-homes in upstate New York. But after a warehouse fire gutted his inventory, he was left with $17.42 in his checking account and an $840 eviction notice taped to his door. His calls for insurance help went unanswered. His one truck was repossessed at dawn. Each morning, he took freelance repair jobs, hauling broken tools in a duffel, trying to save enough for rent. He ate one meal a day, half a sandwich, black coffee, and sometimes nothing at all. The only thing that kept him going was Zara. She'd been his light, his laughter, his promise that better days would come. But lately, she'd changed. Her laughter came with new perfume and colder words. She talked about power couples and high-net investors. Ethan ignored the red flags, her late nights, the designer dresses arriving in boxes, her sudden obsession with social events he wasn't invited to. He thought it was stress. He thought love was enough. He was wrong. One Thursday, he came home soaked from a 10-hour shift rewiring an old diner. The apartment smelled of jasmine and champagne. Zara sat in a silk robe, phone in hand, smiling. "Big news," she said. "We're about to be rich." He blinked. "We." Her laughter was sharp. "You'll see." That night, while he lay awake, a quiet dread settled in his chest. Something about her tone, her distance. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. He just didn't know the fall was already waiting. Zara Kane had always been ambitious, but lately, her ambition had teeth. Born to nothing, she clawed her way through fashion school and into New York's elite circles. When Ethan's business collapsed, she didn't mourn, she strategized. In her mind, loyalty didn't pay, leverage did. Her new partner in crime was Victor Price, an investor with a smirk that promised danger. He'd noticed Zara's charm at a gala 6 months ago. Together, they planned to seize a $500,000 advance from a luxury developer project, on paper through Zara's brand, but in truth funded by Victor's shady contacts. All she needed was Ethan's quiet signature to make it legal. When Ethan asked questions, she'd dismiss him. "You wouldn't understand corporate stuff." Then came the first cruelty. She drained their joint account, saying it was just bookkeeping. When he begged for transparency, she laughed. "Grow up, Ethan. I'm not your babysitter." Victor fed her ego, whispering promises of yachts and penthouses. "Once this deal lands, you'll be free of him," he said. Zara believed it. She believed in money more than vows, in champagne more than sacrifice. And on the night she signed the $20 million deal, she decided freedom meant cutting Ethan out entirely. Ethan arrived home early, drenched from the rain. The apartment smelled of roses and perfume, not hers. 2 champagne flutes sat half-empty on the marble counter. A thick contract lay open beside them. His name was missing. "What's this?" he asked. Zara didn't even look up from her phone. "My new beginning," she said. He frowned. "You said we'd rebuild together." "We?" "Ethan, look at you. You're a failure waiting for a miracle." Her tone was sugar and steel. "The deal is mine now. And so is the penthouse." He stepped closer. "Zara, don't do this." She smiled cruelly. "It's already done. Security's on the way." The words hit like thunder. Behind her, Victor stepped out from the hallway, straightening his tie. "Hey buddy," he said casually. "It's not personal. Just business." Ethan's pulse roared. "You used me. You both." Zara's voice cut him off. "Get out, Ethan. Take your tools, your pity, and your sad dreams." He tried to grab the contract, but Victor shoved him back. His shoulder slammed into the glass door, the rain-slick world blurred outside. "You'll regret this," Ethan said through clenched teeth. Zara laughed. "The only thing I regret is wasting years on a man who couldn't keep up." Security arrived, 2 guards in dark suits. They escorted him to the elevator while Zara raised her glass. "Goodbye, Ethan." The doors closed. He caught one last image, her arm linked with Victor's, her lips brushing his cheek, the city lights reflecting off the gold lettering, $20,000,000. That night, Ethan sat under a bridge, rain soaking through his torn jacket. His duffel held everything he owned, a photo, 2 shirts, and broken hope. His phone buzzed once, Zara's final message, "Don't call me again." He nearly threw it away, but then, a hand appeared. An older man offered him an umbrella and a card. "You're Ethan Kane," the man said softly. "Your father's been looking for you." Lightning cracked. For the first time in days, Ethan lifted his head. What do you think Ethan discovers that changes everything? Drop your prediction below. 6 months later, winter sunlight poured over Manhattan's skyline, glinting off glass towers. Ethan Kane stood before one, taller than them all, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit. The man who once begged in rain now arrived in a black Aston Martin DB11. His reflection in the lobby glass looked unrecognizable, confident, calm, unbroken. The card that stranger had given him led to a discovery that changed everything. His father, Graham Kane, was alive, a silent billionaire behind several Fortune 500 companies. And Ethan? His sole heir and new executive partner. The truth unfolded in quiet shock. When Ethan met Graham Kane in a Manhattan hospital room, the old man's first words were, "I wanted to see if you'd fight for yourself." The letter he handed over was brief but world-shattering. "To my son Ethan, you are the rightful beneficiary of the Kane Trust, $2.8 billion in assets and controlling interest in Kane Industries. Prove your worth, and it's yours." Attached was a file, record showing that the $20 million real estate deal Zara signed had actually come from a subsidiary owned by the Kane Trust. Ethan's own family wealth had unknowingly funded her betrayal. At first, he couldn't speak. "She took everything from me," he said quietly. Graham nodded. "Then take it back. But do it the right way, publicly, permanently." For weeks, Ethan studied the contracts. Hidden in fine print was a clause: all assets revert to the investor if misrepresentation or fraud is discovered. Zara had claimed she owned Ethan's company's patent, an illegal lie. The deal wasn't just immoral, it was void. He contacted Kane Industries' legal division and assembled a private investigation team. They unearthed 47 hours of recorded calls, bank transfers totaling $847,000, and evidence of bribery involving Victor Price. Every document, timestamp, and transaction was authenticated by federal auditors. Then came the decision that defined his path: expose them at the Investor Gala, the same event Zara had once used to celebrate her success. This time, the guest list would include CEOs, reporters, and high-ranking officials, more than 200 witnesses. Ethan didn't want revenge. He wanted closure. But his father's last words echoed in his head. "Justice and dignity are the same thing, son. Let her see both." Ethan's transformation wasn't just wealth, it was rebirth. He trained daily with a personal coach, regaining 20 pounds of lost weight, his body stronger than before. His wardrobe evolved from thrift store flannel to Armani suits and Tom Ford coats. His once calloused hands now wore a Patek Philippe watch, a quiet symbol of power reclaimed. Met with Kane Industries' legal counsel twice a week, compiling files thick with evidence. The lawyers rehearsed every angle of Zara's fraud. He gathered witnesses, accountants, assistants, even Victor's former driver, who provided damning testimony. His new executive assistant, Lena Rivers, coordinated everything with precision. She became his loyal helper, ensuring every paper trail was airtight. Tonight, Ethan would still think of the rain, of that last cruel smile. But anger turned to purpose. He no longer wanted to make Zara suffer. He wanted truth to stand tall where lies had lived. His grief sharpened into focus. He forgave himself for trusting her. By the 5th month, his confidence radiated effortlessly. Business magazines featured him as the return of the Kane legacy. Zara, oblivious, bragged online about her growing empire, unaware that every cent rested on Ethan's signature, and every cent could vanish overnight. 2 days before the Investor Gala, Ethan reviewed the final document packet. At the top, Case File 4731, Zara Kane and Victor Price, fraudulent acquisition, $20 million void contract. He placed it in a matte black briefcase beside an envelope labeled ownership transfer, Kane Industries subsidiary. His plan was simple: appear unannounced, let her celebrate her success, then unveil the truth for all to see. He checked his watch. The gala was on Saturday, March 15th, At 7:30 p.m. This time, he wouldn't be knocking on the glass. He'd own the building. How should Ethan expose Zara publicly at the gala? Comment your ideal revenge scenario below. The Crystal Arcadia Hotel glimmered like a diamond that night. Chandeliers threw gold across the ballroom as Zara Kane floated through the crowd in a silver Versace gown, laughter echoing with champagne bubbles. Reporters clustered around her, snapping photos beneath the headline banner, Kane Design Partners celebrates $20 million expansion. Victor Price stood at her side, his Rolex catching the light. To us, he said, raising his glass. Zara beamed. To freedom, she whispered. They believed they'd won. Investors signed new pledges, $3.6 million in fresh backing, while waiters carried trays of oysters and gold leaf truffles. Across the room, a giant screen displayed Zara's logo. The future of design, the announcer said. Then Victor leaned closer, smirking. Guess Ethan's still fixing pipes somewhere, he muttered. Zara laughed. Let him rot. I traded up. She didn't notice the whisper spreading through the crowd, the quiet ripple of recognition as a name appeared on the guest registry. The ballroom doors opened. Ethan Kane entered flanked by two figures, Lena Rivers, holding a leather portfolio, and Detective Miles Thorne, in plain clothes but with an unmistakable badge at his belt. Every camera turned. Ethan walked slowly, his black Armani tuxedo immaculate, his posture effortless. He carried no anger in his face, only quiet certainty. The contrast was cinematic, Zara's shock visible even from the stage. Her glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Evening, Ethan said, voice calm. I hope I'm not interrupting. No one spoke. The host stepped aside as Ethan took the microphone. I heard there was a celebration, he continued. Seems fitting, since the company being honored tonight belongs to my family trust. Murmurs surged. Zara forced a laugh. What is this, Ethan? Some sick stunt. He turned toward her. Not a stunt. A correction. Lena opened the portfolio and handed him a folder. He flipped it open. This is the legal documentation confirming that the $20 million investment you received came from a Kane Industries subsidiary, one that I now control. Victor's face drained of color. Zara froze, lips parting without sound. Ethan's tone stayed even. You didn't just betray me, Zara. You forged ownership papers. You claimed patents that weren't yours. And you spent every cent of money that wasn't legally yours to spend. The crowd gasped. Cameras clicked like gunfire. Ethan placed the briefcase on the podium. Let's start small, he said, clicking it open. Exhibit A, bank statements. Here are transfers, $847,000 in siphon funds, from the project escrow into a personal account ending in 0913. Registered to Zara Kane. Exhibit B, audio recordings. The speakers played Victor's voice. No one will trace it back. He's out of the picture anyway. The audience turned to glare at him. Exhibit C, contract fraud. Ethan highlighted the forged signature beside a patent code belonging to his old company. That's a felony, by the way. He paused, scanning the silent room. Now the part one almost admire. Your plan to sell my father's land portfolio overseas. Clever. Except he tapped the screen behind him, revealing the deed, Kane Trust Holdings. Zara stumbled backward. This can't be real. Ethan met her eyes. Oh, it's real. Just like the clause that voids your deal if fraud's discovered. Which means, legally, every asset, property, and account you touch now belongs back to Kane Industries. Victor lunged toward the exit, but Detective Thorne stepped in front of him. Sit down, Mr. Price, he said, flashing his badge. Zara's voice cracked. Ethan, please, we can talk. No, Zara. You talked enough the night you threw me out. He gestured to the detective. She and her partner are charged with grand theft, wire fraud, and contract falsification. Gasps filled the ballroom as officers entered quietly from the side doors. Zara turned to Victor. You said we'd be safe. He snapped, you forged the documents. The two began shouting, blame spinning wildly as photographers documented every second. Ethan spoke over them. You both tried to destroy me. Instead, you funded my return. Zara sank to her knees, makeup streaking, words tumbling out. denials, then pleas, but no one listened. Detective Thorne nodded to his team. Officers stepped forward. Metal cuffs clicked. Charges echoed across the ballroom. Zara Kane grand theft, $847,000, sentence recommendation, 15 to 25 years. Victor Price, attempted fraud and corporate conspiracy, 25 years to life. Cameras flashed wildly. An official voice read the final statement, all stolen assets frozen effective immediately. No bail. Zara sobbed as they led her away. The same photographers who'd once begged for her smile now captured her humiliation. Victor's curses faded down the hallway. Ethan stood still, breathing steadily. When the noise settled, Ethan addressed the crowd. Kane Industries will honor every legitimate investor. As for this venue, he smiled faintly, it's under my ownership now. A reporter whispered, you own the Crystal Arcadia? He nodded. It was part of the trust. Lena placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. He looked out over the sea of stunned faces. Justice isn't revenge. It's truth standing tall. The applause began softly, then grew, thunderous and full. Zara was gone. Ethan stood alone, victorious, and utterly free. Justice was swift, and truth had perfect timing. Does the punishment fit the crime? What would you add or change? Comment your thoughts below. 2 years later, Zara Kane's name had vanished from every magazine and website that once celebrated her. She spent her days inside a minimum security facility outside Albany, pale and quiet, her designer nails now unpolished. Her appeals were denied twice. Victor Price had turned on her during trial testimony, earning himself a longer sentence in a federal penitentiary. One co-conspirator fled overseas but was extradited 6 months later and banned permanently from business practice. Another, her accountant, was found guilty of tax fraud and placed in a psychiatric care program after a breakdown. The empire Zara built on greed had crumbled. The penthouse she once flaunted now belonged to Kane Industries. The sports cars were repossessed, her accounts empty, her jewelry sold at auction. She worked in the prison library now, logging borrowed books, earning $1.25 an hour. Sometimes, when reporters visited for documentaries about white-collar crime, she refused interviews. The last time anyone saw her on camera, she looked straight into the lens and whispered, I had everything. Then she turned away. Ethan Kane didn't chase fame, he built purpose. After the scandal, he invested part of the $2.8 billion trust into something his father had dreamed of, the Kane Foundation for Renewal, an initiative funding housing for families recovering from financial loss. Within a year, it had supported over 500 households across New York and New Jersey. He bought an estate overlooking the Hudson River, sunlit gardens, glass walls, peace. Lena Rivers stayed by his side, promoted to executive director of his foundation. The loyalty she'd shown through the hardest months became the quiet heartbeat of his new life. Ethan's health returned fully, his hands no longer trembled when he signed contracts. He mentored small business owners, taught ethics seminars, and visited construction sites where workers called him the boss who remembers the struggle. Every morning, he placed a single photo on his desk, the one from the old apartment, taken before Zara's betrayal. Not out of bitterness, but as a reminder, never forget who you were when they left. And on weekends, his laughter finally came back. His rescued dog, Ace, ran through the garden as Ethan grilled on the patio with his small circle of friends. There was no spotlight, no pretense, just life, rebuilt honestly. One gray afternoon, Ethan visited the old bridge where he'd once sat in the rain. The same spot, but this time, sunlight rippled across the water. He whispered the same words he'd said that night, I'll find my way. Only now, it wasn't a plea. It was gratitude. He smiled faintly, remembering the sound of Zara's voice fading behind a slammed door. It no longer hurt. It simply reminded him how far he'd come. For the first time in years, he felt completely still inside. No anger. No regret. Just peace. Months later, Ethan stood on stage at the grand opening of the Kane Renewal Center, cutting the ribbon as children and families cheered. Cameras flashed, not for scandal, but for hope. He looked into the crowd and said softly, Karma is patient but never forgets. Applause filled the hall. As the lights shimmered, Ethan realized the greatest victory wasn't wealth or revenge, it was healing. What goes around comes around. Always. What's the biggest lesson from this story? Comment below, and if this moved you, share it with someone who needs hope.